He had chosen a quiet life. After years of danger and chaos, he wanted nothing more than a peaceful routine. The small town he moved to was calm, the streets empty most evenings and the neighbors polite but distant. He rented a modest house on the edge of town where the trees were thick and the air smelled of earth and rain. It was the kind of place where life moved slowly, where no one asked too many questions and where he could disappear into ordinary days. Every morning, he woke just before sunrise. He would make a simple breakfast, usually eggs and toast, and sip strong black coffee as the sun spilled gold across the kitchen table. His dog sat patiently at his feet, eyes following every movement. The dog had been his companion for years, a silent witness to all that he had seen and done. It had grown with him, shared his quiet nights and his restless mornings. Its loyalty was unmatched, and the bond between them was stronger than any words could describe. He spent his days quietly. Sometimes he worked on small projects around the house, fixing what needed fixing, keeping things in order. Other times he walked the dog through the quiet streets, the dog's leash loose in his hand as they wandered past shuttered homes and neatly kept gardens. People waved politely, never lingering. He returned the gestures, his face calm, almost unreadable, though his eyes held a depth that most did not notice. There was something about him that felt heavy with history, a presence that made people respectful without fully understanding why. The town itself was unremarkable, in the best way possible. Children played in yards, their laughter carrying through the air, and neighbors tended to gardens with careful hands. On weekends, the market was bustling, and he would wander through the stalls buying only what he needed. He liked to blend in, to move quietly through life, avoiding attention. He did not speak of his past, did not mention the missions, the operations, or the sacrifices. Those things belonged to another life, one that he had left behind. This life was simple, calm, and deliberate. Evenings were his favorite. The sun would dip low behind the trees, casting long shadows across the yard. He would sit on the porch, the dog resting at his side, and watch the world slow down. He liked to think about nothing, to let the mind rest from the years of sharp focus and constant vigilance. He had learned long ago how to live in the moment, how to appreciate the quiet, how to find meaning in simple routines. It was a skill born from necessity, honed through years of danger and uncertainty. The dog was more than a companion. It was a guardian of sorts, sensing moods, reading expressions, and offering comfort without judgment. In its eyes he found understanding and acceptance, a silent reassurance that he was not alone. They communicated without words. A glance, a gesture, a shared breath was enough to know that they belonged together, that no matter what had been lost in the past, this connection was unbreakable. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple, he walked the dog to the small park near the edge of town. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp grass and fallen leaves. He let the dog off the leash, watching as it ran freely, tail high, ears flapping with joy. He smiled quietly, a rare, soft expression that few people ever saw. It was moments like this that reminded him why he had chosen peace. It was not about running from the past, but about finding something worth staying for. The streets were empty, the town calm, yet he never let his guard down completely. Years of experience had taught him that danger could appear anywhere, and while he longed for ordinary life, he knew vigilance was part of who he was. He had lived through situations that most people could not imagine, faced challenges that would break ordinary minds. That history was a shadow behind his calm exterior, an invisible weight he carried silently. Despite his desire for peace, he was always aware of the world around him. The neighbors were kind but distant, unaware of the life he had lived. Some had noticed his quiet demeanor, the way he moved with purpose, and the dog that seemed almost too intelligent for an ordinary pet. They respected him without knowing why, sensing a depth that was unspoken but undeniable. At night, he would sit alone in the dim light of his living room, reading or simply staring out the window. The dog would lie nearby, chest rising and falling with steady breaths, offering warmth and companionship. The world outside was unaware of the life he had led, the skills he had mastered, and the dangers he had faced. Here in this small, quiet house, he could be just another man living quietly, honoring the bond with the creature that had shared his journey. Some evenings, memories would surface, brief flashes of operations and missions that demanded every ounce of focus and courage. He did not dwell on them, did not let them disturb the calm he had worked so hard to create. They were ghosts, reminders of who he had been, but they did not define him now. He was present, fully engaged in the life he had chosen, and he guarded it fiercely, silently. There were occasional moments of worry, small incidents that reminded him that peace could be fragile. A car that sped too fast, a shout that broke the calm, a shadow that moved in the wrong way. But these were minor, fleeting disturbances. He handled them with quiet efficiency, never drawing attention, never letting the ordinary world know of the trained mind behind the composed face. His dog was always a source of comfort. It followed him through the house, nudging him gently, leaning against him with a weight that was both physical and emotional. In the quiet nights, he would stroke its fur, feeling the steady heartbeat, and in those moments, he allowed himself to feel a sense of belonging, a fragile but precious thread connecting him to the ordinary world he now inhabited. The town, in its simplicity, offered him a canvas to paint a life free from the chaos of his past. He tended to his garden, walked the streets, visited the small store, and exchanged polite words with neighbors. Yet beneath the surface, the discipline, precision, and awareness, honed through years of service, remained. It was invisible to everyone but him, a silent presence that shaped every step, every glance, every interaction. He often thought about the future, wondering how long he could maintain this balance, how long the quiet life could remain unbroken. He knew that life had a way of intruding, that unexpected events could shatter the calm in an instant. Yet he was patient, observant, and deliberate. He trusted in his training, in his experience, and in the bond with his dog, knowing that together they could face whatever came, even if the rest of the world remained oblivious. Each day, each evening, each quiet moment reinforced his choice. He was not defined by the missions he had completed or the dangers he had faced. He was defined by his ability to find peace, to create a sanctuary in a small town, and to nurture the bond with his loyal companion. The dog was more than a pet. It was a living reminder of loyalty, trust, and the quiet joy of simple companionship. The routine was comforting. Wake, eat, walk, tend to the house, read, rest, sleep. Yet it was not monotony. It was a deliberate construction of peace. He cherished the predictability, the control over his environment, and the subtle ways in which life unfolded without chaos. He had earned this life, and he protected it as fiercely as he once protected lives in faraway lands. Even when the night was deep and silent, when the world seemed to hold its breath, he remained alert. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the unpredictable nature of life. He had learned that calm was precious, fragile, and worth guarding. His eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the shadows outside, always aware of the subtle movements, the slight changes in the air, the signs that others might miss. And so, he lived. Quietly, carefully, with a loyal dog at his side and the world largely unaware of the man beneath the calm exterior. He was ordinary to those who passed by, a neighbor, a resident, a quiet man who smiled politely. But within him was a reservoir of skill, discipline, and experience that few could comprehend. It was a delicate balance, a life built on choice, and he intended to honor it fully day after day with patience, gratitude, and quiet determination. The bond between him and his dog was unbreakable. It was a source of strength, a reason to rise each morning, and a companion in the silent nights. Together, they navigated the rhythms of the town, the simple pleasures, and the fragile peace that he had worked so hard to create. The dog did not question, did not fear, and offered unconditional trust. In return, he offered protection, care, and an unwavering presence. He had left behind the world of operations, danger, and chaos, but he had not left behind the skills, the awareness, or the resolve. They were dormant, hidden beneath a calm exterior, waiting for a time when they might be needed again. For now, they served a different purpose, maintaining order in his quiet life, preserving peace and honoring the bond with the companion who had shared so much with him. As the moon rose, casting silver light over the quiet streets, he returned home, dog at his side. He closed the door, checked the locks, and let the quiet settle around him. He sat breathing in the calm, feeling the warmth of the dog next to him, and allowed himself a moment of contentment. The world outside could wait. Here, in this small house with a loyal companion by his side, he had found what he had been searching for: peace, quiet, and the simple joy of being alive. The next morning, he followed the same routine. Breakfast was simple, coffee strong, dog sitting quietly at his feet. But the calm of the town felt different somehow, heavier. He could not shake the feeling that something was about to happen, a shift in the ordinary rhythm he had grown so accustomed to. The air was still, the streets unusually empty for a weekday morning. Even the birds seemed quieter, their songs hesitant as if sensing a tension invisible to most eyes. As he walked the dog down the familiar streets, a neighbor waved from their porch. He returned the wave politely, but the unease lingered. The dog seemed to sense it too, ears flicking toward sounds beyond sight, body tense. They turned toward the park, their usual path, and he let the dog off the leash to run freely. It darted through the grass, chasing shadows and leaves with carefree energy. Yet he watched every movement, his gaze scanning the perimeter of the park, noting each car, each passerby, every subtle sound. Habit, ingrained over years of necessity, kept him alert even when danger seemed impossible. A few blocks from the park, a sudden shout broke the quiet. The sound was sharp, panicked, full of fear he recognized immediately. People were starting to gather, voices rising in confusion and concern. A small commotion had begun near the edge of the street. He moved toward it, dog following closely, ears perked. When he saw the source, his chest tightened. 2 police officers were present, talking to a neighbor who seemed frightened. The officer's body language was tense, hands hovering near their belts, eyes scanning every movement with suspicion. The dog, noticing their posture, barked softly, a warning not loud enough to alarm the small crowd gathering nearby. He stepped closer, raising a hand in greeting. "Everything okay?" His voice was calm, steady, carrying an authority he had learned to wield quietly. The officers turned toward him, eyes narrowing as they assessed the tall, broad man approaching. They had not seen him before, did not know him, did not know what he could do. He kept the dog close, leash in hand now, trying to convey calm. One officer spoke, voice shaky. "Your dog, sir, it was reported running loose, looking aggressive. We were called to check." The man nodded, understanding, and gestured to the dog, which now sat obediently at his side. "He's friendly. He's never harmed anyone. I'm sorry if he frightened anyone. He usually stays close, and I don't let him roam far." He spoke carefully, measured, hoping to de-escalate, but the tension in the air was too thick. A child's laughter had turned into crying a few feet away, and a neighbor had shouted at the dog to back off. The animal, confused by the shouting and flashing lights of the patrol cars, growled instinctively. A low, protective sound. The officer flinched, drawing a weapon instinctively. In that moment, the world slowed for him. He saw the fear in their eyes, the mistake about to be made, and he reacted instinctively.
"Stand down!"
he shouted, voice strong and commanding. The officers paused, but one had already fired. The shot rang out, sharp and terrifying. The dog yelped, stumbling back, and the crowd gasped. He ran forward, heart pounding, instincts taking over. The dog was his friend, his family, the one being that had never judged him, never left his side. He cradled the dog's limp body, feeling a shockwave of grief and controlled rage. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. People froze, unsure whether to intervene or run. He could feel the weight of his training now. Every mission, every operation, every split-second decision coming to the surface. But he did not lash out with violence. He did not panic. He controlled his breathing, controlled his movements, controlled the energy radiating from him. The dog's breathing was shallow, eyes half closed, and he whispered quietly, speaking to it in soft, comforting tones. "It's okay. Stay with me. I've got you." His words were not for anyone else, only for the companion who had shared every quiet day and every dark memory. The officers were stunned. They had expected fear, anger, or aggression, but instead they saw calm, precise control and grief hidden beneath a measured exterior. The man knelt, holding the dog carefully, voice low but commanding, energy focused and intense. Their initial fear was replaced by confusion. They did not understand what they had provoked, nor did they know the man before them. He was not just a civilian. There was a presence, a weight of experience and skill that made them hesitant to act further. He carried the dog back to his home, moving with deliberate care. The crowd watched silently, sensing the depth of what had happened. No one interfered, no one shouted. Even the officers seemed frozen, unsure how to proceed. He entered the house, closed the door behind him, and placed the dog gently on a blanket on the floor. His hands were steady despite the surge of grief and anger inside. He knelt beside the dog, pressing a hand to its chest, feeling the weak heartbeat, whispering quietly words of comfort, apology, and love. Hours passed in quiet tension. He examined the wound, applied first aid with steady hands, and monitored the dog's breathing. Every movement was precise, careful, and deliberate. Outside, the world moved on, unaware of the storm that had unfolded inside the house. He did not call the police. He did not shout at neighbors. He knew that any further confrontation would escalate the situation beyond control. He acted with patience, discipline, and care, using the same skills that had once saved lives in faraway lands. The officers left eventually, unsure of what to do, their confidence shaken. They had expected a civilian to panic, to rage, to react unpredictably. Instead, they had witnessed control, precision, and a quiet authority that unnerved them. Their report would later reflect confusion, fear, and uncertainty. They did not realize that the man they had encountered was trained to handle far greater dangers than a startled call about a dog. They did not realize the weight of his experience or the discipline that allowed him to act without losing control. By nightfall, the dog's condition stabilized slightly. He stayed by its side, watching every rise and fall of the chest, whispering words of encouragement and reassurance. He did not sleep. He did not eat. The bond between them was stronger than ever, forged in quiet mornings and calm evenings, now tested under fire and fear. The dog's loyalty and trust were unshaken, and his commitment to protect and care was unwavering. Together, they had faced a moment of sudden chaos and emerged. Though shaken, intact, neighbors began to whisper. News of the incident spread quietly, rumors mixing with fear and curiosity. People wondered about the man who had handled the situation with such calm and authority. They did not know the truth, did not understand the depth of his past, and could only speculate. Some were impressed, some intimidated, but all were aware that something extraordinary had occurred in their small town. He did not seek attention. He did not respond to questions or speculation. He continued his routine, careful to avoid further conflict while the memory of the incident weighed on him. He thought of the dog constantly, of its pain, of the injustice it had suffered. Yet he did not dwell in anger. He had learned long ago that anger could cloud judgment, that patience, observation, and measured action were more powerful than immediate retaliation. His training had instilled discipline, and now it served him in protecting both himself and the companion he loved. Even as the night deepened, he could hear the distant sirens, the quiet stirrings of the town, the faint hum of life continuing. He remained vigilant, watching over the dog, ensuring its comfort and safety. The bond between them had been tested and reaffirmed, stronger than ever. He understood that trust was fragile, loyalty rare, and that the moments of connection, even in tragedy, were precious. The following days were tense. The officers involved avoided him, unsure how to approach or explain what had happened. The town's curiosity grew, and whispers followed him on his walks. Yet he remained calm, steady, and controlled. He continued the routines that gave his life structure: walks tending to the house, quiet evenings with the dog by his side. He was deliberate in every action, aware of the eyes watching him and prepared for any unexpected developments. He also began to notice subtle changes. Reports surfaced about misconduct, small investigations, and internal questioning. It was not his doing, but his presence seemed to influence events indirectly. He had learned long ago that observation and patience often accomplished more than action alone. By remaining calm, vigilant, and deliberate, he allowed the natural consequences of mistakes and fear to unfold. He did not intervene overtly, but his existence, his demeanor, and his unshakable calm created ripples that others could not ignore. Through it all, the dog remained the constant, the anchor in his life. Each day he watched it recover slowly, providing care, comfort, and companionship. Their bond deepened, strengthened by adversity and reinforced by mutual trust. In the quiet moments, he would whisper to it, not just in grief but in gratitude, acknowledging its loyalty and its role in keeping him grounded. Together, they faced the aftermath of a sudden, unnecessary act of violence and emerged more united than before. He reflected on the situation constantly, analyzing every detail, every movement, every decision. He understood the fear that had led to the officer's actions, yet he could not condone the result. He had long been trained to assess threats, to act decisively, and to maintain control under pressure. Now he applied those same principles in a world far removed from military operations. in a town that knew nothing of the life he had lived. Each decision, each measured action, was informed by experience, discipline, and a deep understanding of human behavior. By the end of the week, the dog had stabilized enough to move freely around the house. He allowed it small excursions into the yard, carefully monitoring its activity. Each step, each movement was calculated to avoid further harm and to rebuild confidence. The dog responded, wagging its tail, playful once again, sensing the man's calm authority and unwavering care. The town continued to whisper. Neighbors speculated, authorities debated, and yet he remained a quiet observer, engaged in his routines, caring for his companion, and maintaining the fragile peace he had created. He understood that life could change in an instant, that ordinary moments could become extraordinary, and that calm, careful presence could influence events more than confrontation ever could. And so he lived each day with measured intention. He did not forget the incident. He did not suppress grief or concern, but he applied his discipline, patience, and deep awareness to navigate the aftermath. The dog, once a source of simple joy, had become a symbol of trust, loyalty, and the quiet strength that defined both of them. Together, they continued their walks, their routines, their quiet evenings, navigating the world with careful observation and unwavering bond. The life they shared, once defined by calm simplicity, now carried the weight of unexpected chaos and the resilience to endure it, stronger and more connected than ever. Days passed since the incident, and the quiet town was still buzzing with subtle tension. Neighbors whispered behind curtains, speculating about the man who had handled the shooting with such calm authority. He continued his routine, walking the dog in the early morning mist, tending to his home and keeping to himself. But beneath the surface, he was preparing for what was coming. His experience had taught him that moments like these, though small in appearance, could spiral if left unchecked. The dog's recovery was steady but slow. He devoted his time to monitoring it, administering care, and ensuring that its movements were safe. He spoke softly to it, words meant to comfort and reassure. Every glance from the animal reminded him of what had been lost and what still mattered. He was not just caring for a pet. He was tending to a bond forged through years of companionship, loyalty, and understanding. Its trust was sacred, and he would not allow it to be broken again. Outside, the officers involved in the shooting were feeling uneasy. They had underestimated the man, and the encounter had left a mark on their confidence. They could not explain why they felt watched, why the normal routines of their days were disrupted. Reports began surfacing about minor mistakes in the department, irregularities that were quickly investigated. They attributed it to stress, fear, or coincidence, but the truth was subtler. He had not acted violently, had not sought revenge, but his presence, his aura, and the precision in his responses had set off a ripple of accountability they could not ignore. The town continued its ordinary life, unaware of the currents beneath the calm. People went about errands, children played, and the markets bustled, yet there was an undercurrent of unease. The man did not seek attention, but he observed everything. His eyes were sharp, noting the subtle behaviors of neighbors, the ways in which rumors spread, and the reactions of those in authority. He moved quietly, deliberately, allowing the world to reveal itself without intervention, while still prepared to act if the need arose. He spent hours reviewing every detail of the incident. He replayed the sequence in his mind. The shout, the panic, the gunshot, the immediate aftermath. He did not dwell in anger, but studied it like a strategist analyzing a battlefield. Every misstep, every reaction, and every outcome offered lessons. He understood human behavior deeply, trained to predict and respond with precision. Now he applied that knowledge to a civilian context, a situation that demanded subtlety, patience, and restraint. At home, he reinforced security measures without drawing attention. Doors and windows were checked, the perimeter of the property carefully observed, and small precautions taken to ensure the dog's safety. He did not trust blindly. Experience had taught him that calm could be disrupted in an instant, and he intended to be prepared. The dog sensed the vigilance and remained close, following his movements, offering silent reassurance that it understood the seriousness of the moment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he walked the dog through the familiar park. The streets were quiet, shadows long and deep. He noticed a figure lingering near the edge of the playground, seemingly observing him. The person left when he approached, but the feeling remained, an impression that he was being watched, assessed. His instincts were sharp. He felt the tension in the air, subtle but unmistakable. This was a small test, a challenge not of his strength, but of his patience and awareness. He returned home and reviewed his surroundings from the windows, noting the slight movements of neighbors, the subtle shifts in streetlights, the patterns of cars passing by. He did not act on impulse. He did not need to. Observation was his tool now, just as it had been in the past. Every detail, no matter how minor, informed his understanding, and he prepared himself for the eventual moment when knowledge would translate into action. Meanwhile, the dog's health continued to improve. Each day it became more energetic, playful, and responsive. Their bond, already strong, deepened with each passing hour. The man found solace in these small victories, in the quiet companionship that reminded him of what truly mattered. It was not about proving skill or authority, but about preserving life, trust, and the fragile peace they shared. The officers continued their routines, but a subtle fear lingered. They had underestimated him, and now, every interaction, every report felt like it could carry consequences. They could not explain the unease that followed them, the sense that someone was aware of every step, every decision. It was an intangible pressure, invisible yet effective, and they responded with caution, hesitation, and self-doubt. The man remained outwardly calm, never revealing his awareness, never acting aggressively. He allowed the world to unfold around him, while his mind catalogued every behavior, every reaction, every possible outcome. Patience was his ally and restraint his weapon. He understood that true power was not in confrontation, but in preparation, observation, and the precise application of skill when necessary. One afternoon, he noticed unusual activity near the town hall. Officers were speaking in hushed tones, moving quickly and exchanging notes. He observed from a distance, careful not to draw attention, yet absorbing every detail. The situation did not require his direct involvement, but understanding it allowed him to anticipate consequences and respond if needed. His training had made him vigilant, analytical, and strategic, and he applied those abilities subtly, without disrupting the ordinary flow of life. Back at home, the dog settled into a routine as well. Walks, meals, playtime, and rest created a rhythm that offered stability amid tension. The man found comfort in these routines, recognizing the importance of structure for both himself and his companion. Each shared moment reinforced trust, deepened connection, and provided the emotional grounding needed to navigate an unpredictable world. As the week progressed, the town's whispers became more focused. People speculated about the man's background, the dog, and the incident. Some admired the calm authority he displayed, while others were wary, unsure of what they were witnessing. He remained detached from these speculations, observing human behavior without judgment, analyzing motivations and understanding patterns. His focus was on what truly mattered, the safety and well-being of his companion and the maintenance of his own measured peace. One night, the dog stirred restlessly, sensing tension that the man had not yet fully identified. He followed it to the window, noticing a group of cars parked further down the street. They were unfamiliar, officers in uniform, moving in coordinated patterns. He watched, silent and calm, recognizing the signs of heightened awareness and investigation. He did not panic. He did not confront. He prepared, mentally mapping possible scenarios and responses, using his years of training to remain ahead of unfolding events. The dog's trust was unwavering. It followed his lead, responding to his calm energy, relying on his judgment. He moved with care, ensuring that their movements did not draw unnecessary attention. The night was tense, but his control over the situation was absolute. Every action was deliberate, every step measured, every decision informed by experience. The dog mirrored his composure, its presence a source of comfort and reinforcement. Days turned into nights filled with quiet observation. The man remained vigilant, patient, and precise. He documented subtle changes, noted the behavior of neighbors, and monitored the officers' movements from a distance. He allowed the world to act, knowing that understanding came before intervention and preparation before confrontation. His life, though seemingly ordinary, was a web of careful observation, strategic patience, and deep awareness. The officers became increasingly uneasy. Minor mistakes, procedural oversights, and unexplained events began to accumulate. They could not attribute them to chance. Their confidence eroded, and internal discussions became tense and cautious. The ripple effect of the man's presence, discipline, and subtle influence was clear, though no one outside his home fully understood its source. He had not acted directly. He had not used force. Yet the weight of his skill, awareness, and unshakable calm influenced outcomes without a single confrontation. In the safety of his home, the man reflected on the lessons of patience and observation. He had faced chaos before, had seen the world unravel in moments, and had learned that the calm mind often prevailed where impulsive action failed. Now he applied those lessons to a new battlefield, the ordinary world with its fears, misjudgments, and misunderstandings. He moved quietly, subtly, influencing events without aggression, relying on presence, awareness, and timing. The dog, recovering fully now, continued to be a source of grounding. Each morning they walked together, sharing a rhythm that reinforced stability and trust. Each evening they returned home, the dog curling near him as he prepared meals, tidied the house, and maintained routines. The life they shared was both ordinary and extraordinary, defined by calm amidst tension, connection amidst uncertainty, and discipline amidst chaos. Weeks passed. The town's curiosity persisted, but he remained an observer, never responding overtly, never revealing the depths of his past or the extent of his capabilities. He continued to care for the dog, maintain his home, and navigate the subtle tensions around him with precision and patience. Every movement, every choice was informed by awareness and experience. The quiet life he had chosen was still intact, though now layered with the consequences of misunderstanding, fear, and misjudgment. The man's presence, though silent and controlled, created a balance in the town. Missteps were corrected, tensions dissipated, and subtle order was restored without confrontation. He understood that true influence was rarely seen, rarely acknowledged, and often misunderstood. Yet the results were evident: a small community, adjusting, learning, and moving forward with awareness, guided by an unseen hand of patience, discipline, and unwavering calm. In the quiet hours before dawn, he would sit by the dog, observing the subtle changes in the night, listening to the world, and reflecting on the power of restraint. The dog rested, safe and secure, unaware of the full scope of events unfolding around them. Together they had navigated chaos with calm, fear with discipline, and uncertainty with preparation. Their bond, strengthened by adversity, continued to grow, offering both protection and solace. The man's life had changed subtly, yet profoundly. He understood that even in ordinary circumstances, vigilance, awareness, and patience were invaluable. He did not seek recognition, nor did he crave acknowledgement. His actions were guided by principle, experience, and a commitment to preserve peace and trust. Each day, each evening, each quiet moment reinforced the delicate balance he had created, a life defined by careful observation, unwavering loyalty, and a bond that could endure any challenge. And so he moved through the town quietly, deliberately, always observing, always aware, always present. The dog, his companion, his friend, and his anchor remained by his side. Together, they navigated the subtle tensions and fears of a world that had not yet fully understood them, embodying calm, control, and resilience in the face of uncertainty. Their life was ordinary to the outside eye, but extraordinary in the discipline, care, and awareness that shaped each step, each glance, and each quiet moment of their shared existence. The tension in the town was growing, though no one could put a finger on the source. People whispered about the man and the incident with his dog, some in awe, some in fear. Yet he remained quiet, carrying on his daily routines with calm precision. He did not seek attention. He did not speak of the past. But his presence, disciplined, controlled, and measured, began to create an invisible shift in the neighborhood, affecting both the officers involved and the people around them. Inside his home, he continued to care for his dog, whose health had now returned to near full strength. He tended to every detail: feeding, exercise, and attention. The bond they shared was deeper than ever, strengthened by the trials they had faced. He found comfort in these moments, a quiet sanctuary where no one else could disturb their peace. The dog's trust and loyalty became a source of strength, reminding him that not all relationships were fragile or conditional. The officers who had been involved in the shooting were now cautious in their routines. Their confidence had been shaken, and they began second-guessing their decisions. Small mistakes in reports and procedures began surfacing, forcing internal reviews. They could not understand why they felt constantly observed, why their past errors seemed to accumulate so quickly. In reality, it was the quiet influence of the man, his vigilance, and his subtle mastery of human behavior at work. He did not confront them, he did not threaten them, yet the consequences of their actions began to unfold naturally. The town's gossip grew. People began to notice small, inexplicable events, missing objects being returned, unnoticed miscommunications resolved, patterns of accountability appearing where none had been before. They did not connect these events to him, nor did they know how much he was observing, analyzing, and understanding. He had learned that control often came from presence rather than force, from strategy rather than confrontation. His years of experience had taught him to wait, to watch, and to act only when necessary. One afternoon, he received a knock at the door. It was a neighbor, hesitant and cautious, asking questions about the previous incident. He invited the neighbor in, offering coffee and calm conversation. He spoke softly, never revealing his background, never displaying anger. Yet the conversation left a lasting impression. The neighbor left with a sense of respect, awe, and a subtle understanding that there was more to this man than met the eye. The man did not seek acknowledgement, but he knew that his calm demeanor and measured words had conveyed authority and awareness. That night, he monitored the streets from his windows, noting the movements of officers and neighbors alike. Patterns emerged, schedules, routines, subtle mistakes, and unspoken fears. He cataloged every detail, not for revenge but for understanding. Knowledge was power, and in this context it allowed him to ensure that future conflicts could be avoided or resolved with precision. His vigilance became a shield, protecting both himself and the dog he loved. The dog, fully recovered now, became an active participant in their routines. Walks through the park, visits to quiet streets, and moments of play provided not just physical exercise but emotional grounding. The man spoke to the dog often, not only giving commands but sharing his thoughts, his reflections, and his strategies. The animal responded with loyalty and attentiveness, understanding the subtle cues in his tone and gestures. Their bond was a silent communication, a partnership built on trust, discipline, and mutual respect. Meanwhile, subtle investigations within the police department began to reveal errors and misconduct that had previously gone unnoticed. Officers involved in the incident were questioned, internal reports were scrutinized, and minor mistakes were elevated to formal inquiries. The man had not interfered directly, but the outcomes were influenced by his mere presence, his calm authority, and his ability to observe without being observed. It was a silent mastery, a demonstration of skill without confrontation. He also began to notice changes in the behavior of the townspeople. People who had once been distant or dismissive now approached him with caution and respect. Their whispers contained admiration and a hint of fear. He did not respond to the attention. He simply continued his routines, aware of the subtle shift in perception. He understood that true influence often came from restraint, observation, and quiet authority rather than force or confrontation. One evening, the dog growled softly, alerting him to movement outside. He watched from the window as an unfamiliar figure approached, hesitated, and then retreated. He did not panic. He did not react aggressively. He observed, cataloged, and remained prepared. His training had taught him that awareness and patience were more powerful than immediate action. The dog's instincts complemented his own, providing an additional layer of vigilance and understanding. The officers involved in the incident began to feel the consequences of their actions more acutely. Mistakes that had seemed minor became magnified. Their routines were disrupted. Internal pressure increased. Anxiety replaced confidence. They could not explain why events seemed to unfold against them, why their decisions now had weightier consequences. The man's quiet presence, his observation, and his subtle mastery of human behavior had created an invisible influence that they could neither ignore nor control. At home, he focused on rebuilding a sense of normalcy for both himself and the dog. Walks became longer, routines more detailed, and care more attentive. He observed the dog's behavior closely, noting any signs of lingering stress or trauma from the shooting. Each day he reinforced trust, loyalty, and the bond that had been tested. Together they navigated the quiet streets, shared meals and evenings on the porch reinforcing a sense of stability and peace. The town's awareness of the man's capabilities remained indirect, subtle, and incomplete. People speculated, some with admiration, others with caution. Officers acted with hesitance, aware of their mistakes but unsure of the origin of the pressure they felt. The man's training, discipline, and strategic patience allowed him to influence events without overt action. He had not sought vengeance. He had not acted aggressively. Yet the outcomes aligned with his understanding of justice, accountability, and careful observation. As the weeks progressed, he began to notice a pattern in the town's movements, in the officers' routines, and in the subtle shifts in behavior. He cataloged these details meticulously, using them to anticipate potential conflicts or misunderstandings. He remained invisible in his influence, never confronting directly, never revealing the depth of his skill. His goal was not to punish, but to ensure that order and accountability emerged naturally from the situation. One night, he sat quietly on the porch, dog at his side, reflecting on the power of patience and observation. He had faced chaos before, had navigated life-or-death situations, and had learned that true strength was often unseen. In this quiet town, he applied the same principles. The dog rested against him, a source of warmth and grounding. Together they had endured a crisis, maintained composure, and ensured accountability without violence. The man's awareness extended to the smallest details. He noted changes in lighting, shadows, and movement. He observed neighbors' conversations, body language, and unspoken cues. He cataloged patterns in the officer's actions, noting tendencies and vulnerabilities. Every detail contributed to a larger understanding, a web of knowledge that allowed him to anticipate, prepare, and maintain control. His skills, honed through years of dangerous missions, now ensured stability in the everyday world. The dog's trust was unwavering. It followed his guidance, mirrored his composure, and provided companionship that reinforced emotional stability. Their shared experiences created a bond stronger than circumstance, a connection that transcended the ordinary. Each day, each walk, each quiet moment reinforced loyalty, understanding, and resilience. By now, the town had adjusted to the man's presence, though not fully understanding it. Officers acted with caution, neighbors observed discreetly, and rumors circulated. Yet he remained calm, consistent, and disciplined. He focused on what mattered: the care of his companion, the maintenance of his routines, and the subtle influence he exerted on events to ensure accountability and stability. He did not seek acknowledgement or recognition. He did not flaunt his skill or experience. He acted quietly, deliberately, relying on observation, patience, and strategic presence. Each choice, each movement, each interaction was informed by awareness and discipline. The dog, fully recovered and attentive, remained the center of his world, offering trust, loyalty, and companionship. Over time, the town's environment subtly shifted. Minor injustices were corrected, procedures were improved, and accountability became more consistent. The officers involved in the incident adjusted their behavior, conscious of their errors and the unseen influence guiding them. The community began to stabilize, though few understood why. The man's presence, his discipline, and his quiet authority had reshaped the environment without confrontation or force. He continued his quiet life, walking the dog, tending to his home, and observing the world with unwavering attention. Each day was a study in patience, control, and resilience. The dog's companionship reinforced his sense of purpose and connection. Together, they navigated the town's subtle tensions, ensuring safety, trust, and accountability without overt action. In the early hours before dawn, he sat on the porch, dog at his side, reflecting on the power of restraint. He had lived through chaos, faced life-or-death situations, and learned that patience and observation often outweighed immediate action. In this quiet town, he applied those principles, guiding events indirectly, ensuring order, and maintaining peace. The bond with his companion provided grounding, comfort, and a reminder of what truly mattered. The man's presence, invisible yet influential, shaped the town in ways no one could fully understand. The officers, neighbors, and townspeople adjusted their behavior subtly, influenced by his calm authority and strategic observation. He had achieved accountability without confrontation, stability without force, and respect without acknowledgement. The dog, loyal and attentive, shared in this quiet mastery, offering both companionship and reinforcement of discipline. Days and weeks continued to pass. The town moved forward, mistakes were corrected, and patterns of order emerged. The man maintained his routines, tending to his companion, observing the world, and ensuring that the delicate balance he had created remained intact. Each action was deliberate, each moment a study in awareness and restraint. Together, he and the dog exemplified calm, trust, and resilience, navigating a world that had tested them and emerged stronger. The man understood that true influence was rarely recognized. His actions were invisible, yet their consequences were felt by those around him. Patience, observation, and strategic restraint allowed him to guide events, correct errors, and maintain peace without confrontation. The dog's trust, loyalty, and presence reinforced his ability to act with precision and calm, and so life continued. The man walked the quiet streets, cared for his companion, and observed the town with unwavering attention. The dog remained by his side, a constant reminder of trust, loyalty, and the quiet strength that defined both of them. Together they maintained balance, safety, and stability in a world that had briefly erupted in chaos, demonstrating that patience, awareness, and disciplined presence were more powerful than any immediate act of force.